Hello, welcome to Fighting for Light, episode 2. We are going to dive into resiliency today. Resiliency is very similar to what it means to be growth mindset. And I use the word resiliency or being resilient, because I think it's more of a common word. I think growth mindset, you've probably heard it or encountered it, especially as wholeness or mindset has become more popular. But resiliency is just the idea of being able to adapt in a situation, to be able to recover when something doesn't go as planned or go our way. And a resilient mindset allows us to be strong in our emotional command, to be strong when there is suffering, which we know and we encounter constantly in our world. And so that's first. Resiliency is just the ability to respond positively in the time of suffering. Why are we talking about this first? Why are we starting episode 2 with resiliency? Because in my opinion, it's not the foundation necessarily. I think self-awareness is the foundation, but resiliency is the first skill necessary when we have self-awareness. Because as we become more and more aware of ourselves, I know for myself and I know for many, as we encounter ourselves, we are going to encounter things that we don't like. And as we encounter the world around us, we hit obstacles, we find suffering, we don't like what we hear or what we see. And if we don't have the ability to be strengthened in our emotional command or in our ability to fail well, then we won't move forward. We won't enter into that growth mindset. So it shapes our mindset, because if we encounter failing and we encounter something that is very difficult or hard, and we say, I don't like that and I can't, then we just stop. We just freeze and we don't move on. And so I think that it's important that we take a look at this. I want to give an example. So Carol Dweck, in her book called Mindset, fittingly, she gives an example of these children that were given a problem to solve that was a little bit too difficult for them. So it was something that they couldn't accomplish, and they knew that giving them the problem. The kids didn't know that. But what they discovered as they watched these children go through this problem, half of them started to say, this is too difficult, and they just stopped, and they just didn't progress and try to solve the problem. The other half of the children said, I'm really frustrated, but I think I can figure it out. And they worked actually harder, because as they were encountering something that was difficult or they felt like they were failing at, it did something inside of them that made them work harder. And some of them eventually started to figure out parts of it because they weren't frozen and they didn't just give up in the moment. I mentioned in the last episode that January Donovan is a big part of the reason that I'm here, because I went through the wholeness coaching school. One of the things that she does with her family that I'm very inspired by, which I should probably institute with my own family, is they actually talk each day, sort of like this high-low moment of ways that I have failed today, and what did I harvest from it? What good or positive thing did I harvest from this? And I think that is a perfect example of training resiliency, because if we can start to harvest positive things from the ways that we fail, then when we encounter failing in the future, we aren't as scared from it, because we know that there are good things that can come out of it. And an example of that for me, I guess, is lately I'm in counseling, and I am going through counseling, and we can talk more about that. But one of the things is looking at the wounds of our past and taking things that are good out of the wounds. You know, so much of what we have to offer into the world, and we can speak into the world, it comes from what we have learned through our lives and how we are formed because of maybe the wounds, but also the positive things. But it is so hard for me to find positive things from a wound that happened in my past. I just so badly want to say, that's all bad. Like everything there is bad. And what I need to say is, I made it through. I learned to depend on other people. I encountered a part of myself that I didn't like and made a change. Have encountered parts of other people that I didn't like and I overcame it, or I learned how to love people who are difficult. I think that it's just important for us to be able to harvest good and positive things from those situations, and that is resiliency. In this day and age, in this current situation that we're in our time, in our society, in our political landscape, we have to be able to see good in the world. We have to. Because if we do not, and we have none of that hope, we won't be resilient when it gets hard. And I just keep coming back to the name of this podcast is called Fighting for Light. And that is a big part of it. I want to be able to inspire that in people. I am constantly telling people, assume the positive. And I don't always do that, but assume the positive. Assume that people aren't out to get us. Assume that everything is working out for our good. Assume that it's going to work out. Obviously, that's not always the case, and I understand that. I'm not naive. But if we can start to train ourselves to look for light in very dark places, then hopefully we will be able to inspire others to do that as well. I do think that there is a place to let the pain hurt as well. My husband is a counselor, and I will probably introduce you to him at some point, but he has said one of the ways to overcome anxiety is to sit in it or to encounter anxiety and also pain, let the pain hurt. And I think that that can also be a form of training ourselves for resiliency, to be resilient. If we understand that suffering and pain has a place, then we're willing to sit in it a little bit more. And I am a Christian, and I do believe that Christ died for us on the cross. And I say that because in the times that we suffer, we have to know that he is suffering with us. I am a Christian, and I believe that Christ is present with us in our suffering. He encountered great suffering for us, and I believe that if we encounter our suffering and we can do it on a regular basis, not to inflict suffering, but to realize that suffering is just a part of our everyday life, then when suffering and pain and darkness does come, because it will, we are able to sit in it and to be present in it in a way that is more resilient, to use this podcast theme. And I think that that's important. One other topic that I do want to mention that I think is important to talk about, but is a harder topic, is the way that we think of people. I think that a lot of times we want to eliminate suffering. We want to eliminate pain. And we also want to eliminate people that are in pain or that are suffering. And I am very really talking about, of course, abortion and euthanasia and things of that nature. I think that if we as a society were more resilient and could find value and purpose when things are hard, that we wouldn't encounter those situations and say we need to end it, or we need to stop it, or we need to create a world where suffering doesn't exist, because it will always exist. I also think that it's very easy for us to feel like we are not called to suffer. And so when things get hard, we do everything in our nature and our power to end that. And so I come to you as a comfort seeker. I am 100% wanting comfort all the time. I hate being cold, and I love to order things on Amazon or pick up my groceries from the store, in my car. And I say all that because I recognize that over time, those things in my life have become sort of a crutch, and that when I start to have to step into some hard things, I've trained myself to not want to suffer. And that's not to say comfort is all bad. I don't mean that. However, I think that we have dignity and value, and humanity as a whole requires that we can struggle a little bit, that in the struggle, we still have value, we still have dignity. And I work with a population of people who don't want to suffer at all. They don't want to encounter the hardship as the CEO here of the Pregnancy Help Center. And I want to say to them, but it's the same thing that I'm saying to everyone. Your life has meaning and value, and you have dignity just because. And as we take some time to become more self-aware and to look at ourselves, it's okay for us to adapt and recover and to say, this is hard, but I can do it. There are skills that I can learn to be able to overcome this hard moment in my life because I deserve it. I deserve to be happy and whole. And I want to say that and give that light to people because you do have value and worth and dignity. And so I share all this because I want you to know that. And I want resiliency to be a part of your life, that as we start to encounter some new topics that are hard and difficult, that we are capable of encountering them. And if all that you gain is the ability to hear and see things that are chaotic in the world right now, that you are able to smile, that you're able to say, I am me, that I have wholeness, that would make me extremely happy. And so, yeah, thank you for being here. This is episode 2 of Fighting for Light. I'm Danielle Hendricks. And I do want to share with you a couple things before we go. I have created just like a mini ebook workbook for you if you would like it. It's to help you set some resolutions and goals for this new year. I know it's February, but let's be honest, we all fell off that bandwagon. So if you're interested in that, you can go to www.claraluxcoaching.com/reset. And that will take you to the workbook. If you're interested in any coaching, just reach out to me on my website. It's claraluxcoaching.com. And also, if you have interest in the Women's School or the master classes there, I'd love to share those with you. So I am going to put a 14-day free trial to their membership options in my show notes. And I would love for you to check it out. It was life-changing to me, and I think that it would be life-changing for you. And that's all I've got right now. Oh yeah, journal prompt. Always going to give you a journal prompt because I think that they are very important. And your journal prompt for this podcast episode of resiliency is, where in my life have I encountered a struggle, and what positive can I harvest from that? See you next time. Thanks for being here.